Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Big Gold Belt movie review brought to you from the Toronto International Film Festival. And this film here is one of the biggest films to come to this festival this year. This one is called Christy. Now, here's a quick synopsis. Christy tells the story of Christy Martin, the most successful female boxer of the 90s, and is directed by David McCord, and it stars Sydney Sweeney as Christy Martin, Ben Foster, Merritt Weaver, and Chad L. Coleman as Don King. Now, first by saying this, boxing biopics are extremely hard to make here, but what separates Christy Martin from just being a boxing film is, and I don't know how many people can remember this, years ago, there was a Dateline story about Christy Martin and about her life and what happened after boxing as she went through a brutal attack from her husband and almost left her dead. With this movie, Christy, they decide to explore all aspects of Christy Martin, especially more of the family dynamic than the boxing aspects of Christy Martin. And I think that's what you're going to get out of this movie majority of the time. So if you're looking for the typical sports biodrama, this is not that. And nor are you going to get too much, I think, information about Christy Martin, the boxer, as much as you're going to get about Christy Martin, the person here. As we're introduced to Christy Martin at the beginning of the film, and we get introduced to her, played by Sydney Sweeney. When we get introduced to her, she's in a tough man contest, just attempting to win some money. And from there, we get to see her win this contest, but we also see other aspects of her life are shown early on, and part of it was her being a lesbian and how her family did not want that, especially her mother. Her mother judged her for that, and it kind of leaned her away from living in her truth at that time. And then at the same time all of this is happening, she starts to get known as a local boxer. And she's sent to train with this trainer who eventually becomes her husband. And that's when the story kicks into the more personal aspects of Christy Martin here. We do get the flashes of exactly how she came up as a boxer, how she got to be known. I remember from the 90s, known as the female Mike Tyson, being known as the most dangerous woman in the world, all of that type of stuff that was known about Christy Martin. But unfortunately for this film, we only get glimmers of her boxing career here. And the boxing scenes aren't shot in the best way humanly possible. These aren't believable scenes. If you saw last year, The Fire Inside, which was a story about Cressida Shields and how that was directed with those boxing scenes that also did not look believable. They looked more believable than the ones that Christy looks. And I think that's one of the biggest issues I have with this film, is that the boxing scenes didn't look authentic. And I'm not necessarily talking about on the way they threw punches, because if you can recall, or if you saw any old clips of 90s women's boxing, I think the movements are the same that we get in this film, and the way they throw punches are the same. It's just not executed well. It leaves so much to desire in the boxing aspects. And I think it's because they focus way more on the dramatic moments of her life than of the sport portions of it. So as we get Christy, as she's coming up in the ranks, as she's coming up and getting money, and we see from the beginning, because it's very much telegraphed, how her husband was, how controlling he was, and how domineering he would be towards her. All of that is like shown so early on that it kind of takes away the audience's chances to really go along with the story, because you're just waiting for the inevitable to happen. Excuse me. And I think that's one of the flaws. One of the other flaws in Christy is that you're always waiting for the inevitable to happen, and it doesn't feel like the film is taking you on a journey. It feels like the film is taking you on clips of her life, and clips of, hey, this happened to Christy Martin, then she became a boxer for Don King. Hey, then she got abused. Then like it always feels like it's moving that way, and it's never as smooth paced as it should have been. And then they do scenes that feel strictly for shock value. While they are true and they are part of Christy's story, I think that one scene in particular that I won't go into detail about that they do, it just felt so unnecessary. And like it felt it was done strictly to surprise an audience more than leading to the story of the film. And I think we get that a lot out of Christy as a film. Now, David's direction here is still great. Like, he does massive jobs of setting up the Christy storyline. It just feels like the plot fails him so many times. And I think that's the weakness of this film. And that's, again, beyond the point of getting into performances, I think the weakness of the film is strictly that, the plotting of it. It just doesn't move as smooth as it needed to, especially for a story that's as big as Christy's story. Most people, again, will go into it thinking about Christy Martin, the boxer. If you do know Christy's story, you know boxing was a huge part. What happens to her later on in life is some of the most horrific stuff humanly possible to happen to a person. And even in that moment, it's directed well, but it still needs more. And I think that's the key thing about Christy as a movie. A lot of times you're watching it, you feel like you need more. You need more to be given to you to understand exactly how powerful this story is. Now, as it comes to performances, I mean, Sydney is going to be the one that's going to get the most attention. In a Hollywood trope, and I don't like to say it this way, but that's the way this feels. In a Hollywood trope of, in the way, de-prettying an actress to make her like more awards worthy. That's what it felt like earlier in this film that they really tried to do here. Granted, Christy Martin was never an attractive woman, and by the time you get to the second half of the film, when her boxing career is taking off, we get to see that side of Christy Martin, which you really thoroughly enjoyed here. But the issue to me is that Sydney, at times, because the in-ring work is not good, Sydney struggles trying to do the boxing aspects of this film. Where she shines at is when Christy's outside of the ring. And the mannerisms of Christy Martin is where she nails. And that's the part that's going to get her possibly the awards attention that most people are kind of predicting that she get. It's going to be because of those moments here. But once you get to the boxing stuff, it's not good at all. It's not even worth talking about at all. It's really bad. But just the personal stuff of her, that moves, and that could be something that can really push people towards attention for Sydney Sweeney. Did I believe this is one of the best performances I've seen this year? Absolutely not. But I still think it's a solid performance, and at least one that shows promise of exactly what you could get. And part of why this does not feel like the strongest performance from Sydney is because Ben Foster, as Christy's husband, kills this role. Absolutely kills this role. Granted, as I said before, it's kind of predictable what's going to happen. They foreshadow it way too far in advance about the person that he is. And it kind of leaves the audience wondering, why were you ever with this person? Because we can see it, so why couldn't you see it? Because that's how telegraphed it is. But Ben does an amazing job in his performance. This is the type of performance that should garner the attention. And I think it will garner the attention here. Along with Coleman, who plays Don King, very limited time we've seen him on screen as Don King. He steals every scene as him and Don King in this film. And he's great in this movie by stealing every scene, including the back and forth that we get between him and Ben as the husband and the promoter having to talk. And again, that's the powerful stuff in this film here. That's the stuff that you're locked into. Along with whenever we see Sydney as Christy Martin away from the ring. Like, she does a masterful job, especially this horrible relationship between her and her mother here. That's the stuff that Sydney nails, and that's the stuff that makes Christy a powerful film. You just wanted to know more about the boxer, Christy Martin, and you only get glimmers of it. So we didn't get to see exactly what she did, how she became known. We only get a fight here and a fight there, fight here and a fight there, and all of a sudden she's the biggest boxer in the world. Like, none of that is really talked about. Even her business aspects of her boxing career, kind of hinted to, not talked about. It felt like they wanted to focus way more on the later life, the Dateline NBC story of Christy Martin than what you would get from an ESPN story of Christy Martin. Like, they separated the two, and not in the best way possible to me to make the film better. So it feels like you get a one note. At a point in time, it felt like you was almost watching a Lifetime movie by the way everything is depicted on there. And I think that is the saddest part of the film, is that we didn't get all sides of Christy Martin perform well. We only got an avenue of it, and that avenue alone, while harrowing, while powerful, is still not enough to make this movie as good as it should have been. But it is still carried by 3 solid performances by 3 really good actors. But Christy, brought to you from the Toronto International Film Festival, out of a possible 10, I'm giving Christy a 7 out of 10. The performances are strong. Sydney Sweeney is believable as Christy Martin away from the ring. Anything in the ring is not believable in the slightest bit of a way. Ben Foster carries this film. As Jim, her husband, he is menacing in this role here. Granted, it does feel at times a little lifetime-ish the way it goes about, but he's extremely menacing in this film. And by the time you get to the third act, if you don't know Christy Martin's full story, you're going to be left in gasping the same way the audience that I saw was. And then we get Mr. Coven, who plays Don King, who I think, if anybody deserves any form of awards recognition, it should be him as Don King. And maybe 3 scenes that he plays Don King in this film, he steals every single one of them. And all his lines are memorable. Like, that's what you want out of an actor in a role. And I think that's perfected well. Just Christy as a whole of a movie, this is not a sports movie. This is way more of a tragic love story film than a sports film. And I don't think they show enough sides of Christy Martin to make this a great film. They show just enough. And her story is just powerful enough for it to be just a good film. And that's what you get here. It's a solid, good film. But check it out when it comes out. Let us know what you think. This has been another Big Gold Bell movie review brought to you from the Toronto International Film Festival. Peace, people.